Attention, your paradigm is about to shift at the intersection of fact and reason. You're entering Kingston Country.
I'm Dan Kingston, and you're listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast. Joining the podcast today, the Culture Fixer at America's Fixer on Twitter, small business owner from Idaho. Thank you for joining the Dan Kingston Podcast today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to get right in and talk about the personal protective equipment. Last I heard, Donald Trump wanted to make a recycling program for at least the N95 masks that people are supposed to wear. If they want to go out in public and be absolutely protected at a minimum. I'm going to leave aside all of that surgical mask stuff and all of that. I'm not even going to go that way.
Now, someone listening, if they're on the far left and they're listening right now, they're going to say, "Oh, recycling masks. He's just going to get people sick." They're right. They're not really understanding that he means they're going to recycle it from the ground up. They're not just going to pat it down and then give it to the next guy, right?
Well, right. And the other thing is I believe they shut him off so quickly at that request, though I believe it was a very intelligent and intuitive idea that he just briefly, and I'm not clear why.
I have to admit, I didn't see this request or this idea of recycling masks. Something has to be done because we don't have enough. So I don't think that's a bad idea to recycle the masks, but you could see how people will question it. You know what I'm worried, the Culture Fixer, America's Fixer, what I'm worried about is recycled masks coming from China, that they're using it on sick people and not boiling it and just sending us their used ones. Is that irrational?
No, it's not irrational at all. And I've come to the point where I'm not buying anything from China. In fact, if something has a sticker on it that says Made in USA, I recommend peeling the sticker off and seeing if underneath there is a sticker that says Made in China, because I've seen that before.
Oh, my God.
So I won't buy anything made in China. I, in fact, feel like we should be instigating, and again, very silently, this may be going on, but I feel like very silently, we should be making a plan to really punish, and I mean really hardcore punish China, if not with war, certainly with more than we have done monetarily ever in the history of the world. They are fully to blame, fully responsible, whether this came from a bat, whether it came from some kind of facility. It doesn't matter where it came from. It came from China specifically, and we know that. And there is no reason that we should hold back. We should absolutely I think we should we should send China a bill. When this is all even close to done, we should send China a bill and tell them, well, you can either send us a check or you can take it off the national debt of what you've purchased from us so far in our debt. Take it off. It's gone. Take it off. And certainly that might be the first step before we make any further requests. And clearly Donald Trump is the best negotiator ever that we've had in the presidential position. So I assume he's going to, and I have faith that he would do something like that. Still, they are absolutely responsible, and I feel like they should be held responsible no matter what. Only time will tell if that happens. And of course, with the Democrats just itching to find anything wrong with anything he says or does and any inconceivable thing that comes of it, who knows where this will go.
And they love China. They're Chinese apologists, the CCP, Chinese Communist Party apologists. Every chance they get, the Democrats would pick China over America. Let me ask you, play devil's advocate, because I tend to agree with you. But there are people, especially on the left, that will say, wait a minute, it was an accident. Poor China. They didn't mean to do this. You know, they did their best to stop it. What would your response be? How are you so sure that it is China's fault and it wasn't just an accident?
Okay, well, I'm sorry. On this one, I cannot play devil's advocate.
Oh no, I was playing devil's advocate. I was playing devil's advocate, and I want you to go full throttle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Well, the reason is very simple. They lied about every single thing that happened, from the number of cases to the number dead, from where it started. Every single thing, they misled us every step of the way. I mean, honestly, like, I'm not I'm a fan of Donald Trump. I believe he is the best man for the job in the times we live in. But if he messes up, I will hold him accountable. That's what I believe in. I believe he acted appropriately with the information he had on hand. And that information is China was lying, and we could not get accurate information from them at all. We had no idea what was coming. I think he got ahead of the curve. Best anybody would have, certainly better than, previous administrations, notably the last one.
Why did China lie? Why were they lying to us? Was it malicious, or was it to save face on their end?
I don't know that I'm even smart enough to answer that question, or really that I have enough information to accurately answer that question. I don't have anything against the Chinese people. I never have.
No, neither do I, but their government is wrong. Their government's evil, right? I mean, the CCP.
They're absolutely, the government is horrible. Authoritarian, and, welding people in their condos.
Did they let sick people leave the country on purpose? That they're infected? Did they let them fly out of the country and infect the rest of the world when they knew they had a problem? Because you know how much they control their borders, their people over there. It's, total, what do you call it, totalitarianism over there. If they had infected people at the airports, they would know. Did they let them board the planes and fly over the world?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt.
So it sounds malicious.
They allowed it to happen. And they did it so that, because ultimately, when this whole thing goes the way it goes, however it goes, if they come out on top, they came out on top. And that's what it's all about. The one thing China has never been inconsistent with is the fact that they want to be the world leader and the world power. They've never been inconsistent about that goal. And, whether or not this was an accident or it was on purpose, which is not for me to necessarily speculate about, they've never been inconsistent with that goal. They want to be a power. They want to control. It's who they are. It's what they are at the government level. The people just have to deal with it. Of course, some of them are, they're brainwashed. They are going to follow the regime. Right. The rest, they want to go another direction. And I get that. It's, that's actually kind of something that riles me up about this whole thing, and just pulls back to the left, is they want to make everything a racist thing or whatever it might be. Yeah. That's not what this is. Could anybody step back just for a minute, please? And just realize, if something like this is going on, you have to make decisions. No one ever in any of our lifetimes has had to make a decision like this regarding shutting down borders, shutting down air travel because of this reason. All of it. It's all brand new. Everything is brand new. And the first thing they want to do is, of course, as you know, blame our soldiers, potentially our military soldiers, for infecting them, which is a side conspiracy. I don't even, that didn't get a lot of traction. Yeah,
you're talking about the Chinese government blaming the American military for the virus, top-level official, and to my knowledge has not apologized, has not taken that back.
Right, and they won't. and they won't. And I'm not surprised about it at all. And I'm also, like most other reasonably minded Americans, not, holding the regular people at hand for that. I'm not holding them accountable for that. This is government stuff.
Yeah, they're victims. Like you mentioned, they're boarded up in their own apartments and left to die during this crisis. So they're victims, really.
Oh, they're totally victims. So many. Well, and we're victims of them. And that goes back to my point. Yeah. They need to be held accountable. I don't see that there's any other way. And I think a lot of it is a bigger, if we could all take I hate to take somebody else's words on this, but I will, Dan Bongino, if we could all just take a 30,000 foot view of this for a minute and just look at what's going on, just pull back and just look from a 30,000 foot view. It's real obvious what's going on. I mean, it's never been more obvious, and you have, unfortunately, the president who, he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. It's just come to that. Very unfortunately. I mean, there is a middle faction of the country that's still willing to hear both sides. But I'm not clear on why they haven't already made up their mind. There has been so many ridiculous claims, so many things that have happened already in the last almost 4 years. Who needs more time to make up their mind? None. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, in terms of like Trump versus Biden at this point?
Not even Biden. I mean, Biden's a joke. Biden couldn't win a frickin', 20-yard run to a bowl of ice cream. He's done. Biden's done. They're all done. You know what I mean? They're all done. The only question in my mind at this point is whether or not the American public as a whole, about 65 million, maybe 70 million at this point, whether or not they believe that Donald Trump has their best, their best things in mind, or whether or not he is playing some just, very outlandish political game to gain trust and do what the left says he is doing. I've never been afraid to declare my support for Donald Trump, and I'm certainly not now. I also want to be fair, though. I want to emphasize that I'm fair. The left has put up nobody as a candidate that could do anything near this. Nobody has the ability to handle these problems in the way that Donald Trump has.
Trump's shown incredible leadership throughout this crisis and is never getting the credit where the credit's due. And it's infuriating to watch. I'm in agreement. Let me ask you about the situation on the ground in Idaho. People go into grocery stores in California, where I am, and they're finding empty shelves. You can still find what you need, but it's a little bit harder. And there's things that are missing that we, just took for granted for so long. And now, you can't find it sometimes, or you have to come back, namely toilet paper, but also canned soups, also, canned items, beans and rice, things that preppers get seem to be running on low supply. Is it like that in Idaho too?
Yeah, certainly. To an extent it is. My wife and I'm married. I have two young daughters. We go out every couple of days. We hit all the major stores within 30 miles of us. We live out of town. So, we're about, I would say 15, 20 miles from the nearest, big city, which is not very big, but it's reasonably sized. There's a couple of Walmarts and a Costco and that kind of thing. We go out every couple of days. And, stand in the line at Costco or whatever it might be. Now that's the thing. It wasn't a couple of weeks ago or even 5 days ago. Stand in the line at Costco. We finally got our 30 pack of Kirkland's toilet paper. That was great. Big win for us.
Yeah.
We had 3, Charmin rolls left or whatever it was. We haven't actually suffered through any of this. We just luckily sort of found ourselves at least basically prepared for what was going to happen.
Did you think it was ever going to come to this in America? Did you ever expect to see this in your lifetime, shelves that weren't completely stocked in America?
I understand the question, and if I might, I would answer it a different way. And that is that I was born just when Reagan was president. I never got to be a part of that whole movement. I've always felt like there was something that was going to just happen. Things happen in lifetimes, and it had been a long time since anything had happened, that was really catastrophic for the country. Mm-hmm. And other than like earthquakes, I want to exclude natural disasters,
right?
In that,
right. Like hurricanes,
earthquakes,
yeah,
that kind of thing. I want to exclude that in what I'm talking about. I've always thought that there was probably something coming that we ought to be prepared for, make sure we're not always in the bottom quarter of the freezer, when we're, grabbing groceries. If we're that low, well, let's buy some extra, this kind of thing,
Smart. Well, what gave you that mindset? Was it, your folks or grandparents or where did you get that thinking?
Well, I grew up very, very poor, very, very poor. All my clothes until I was 13 years old came from Goodwill or St. Vincent de Paul, something like that. We grew up very, very poor. And I don't know that influenced that. I'm not sure which age we all, sort of come online, as it were, and sort of figure our own path and weigh that against what we've lived through. I'm assuming it's everybody is different. So, that's fine. What it boils down to is that at the point in time when you have kids, you have to make some changes. You have to have food in the freezer when a kid's hungry. And you have to think forward beyond that. You have to think forward beyond that. And I'm lucky to have married a beautiful woman that also shared my train of thought, that said, keep food in the refrigerator. Keep more food in the refrigerator than you need. And we've done that, not always easily, but we've mostly done that. And now we come to this, and like I say, we were basically prepared when this came through, when this COVID-19 in Idaho, they announced that they would just like us to shelter at home. I mean, obviously, it's a constitutional republic, so they cannot, like in China, weld you in your condo or your apartment or whatever. They can't do that.
I hope not.
They can say, we would like you to stay home. So when they told us they would like us to stay home, my wife, who is in the medical industry, she's on the billing side of it, it was no problem. She brought her work laptop home, and she started working. And we looked, she doesn't get as much work done because the girls are playing and having their fun all day, doing their things, and we have to be parents and try and work. And my job as a contractor is really slowed down because nobody is really sure of what's going on. Right. But by and large, it's just come to a scenario where, you just do what you do, and it's, everybody should be, if I can just cap that off. I'm sorry, I don't think I answered your question, but let me move forward beyond it because it may answer it anyways. If everybody could just concentrate on being a little bit more prepared, I think the takeaway from all of this is that we really shouldn't be looking to government for the answers. The government has so many cogs and wheels and places where somebody can just get in the way of something working smoothly, unlike a small business, which I'm trying to grow and make sure that doesn't happen. If we could just quit relying on the government to the extent that they didn't have to come out every 24 hours and argue with reporters who are trying to destroy them because they have a different idea or a different way of moving the country forward. If we could just be a little more self-reliant.
This is what I'm afraid of, is we're all expecting the government to save us. The left especially. Government, save us, save us. The government's not Superman, and it makes me worried about a national lockdown. Trump's going to be kind of forced in that direction because, like you mentioned, the shelter-in-place orders are, by and large, unconstitutional. But if the president were to initiate some kind of martial law lockdown, that is in the Constitution, and he could do that. Are you worried that Trump's going to be pressured into that?
No, not even a little bit. And I not only do I not think that will happen, but I think certainly in a few states like Idaho for sure, Texas, Florida, Ron DeSantis, he's a solid guy, but I don't know how this is going to go when they have an outbreak going. So I'm kind of on the fence about that one. I mean, you know, when the line crosses between a sort of a matter of security and infringing on people's rights, that's something we've not been tested with. Yeah. We've not been tested with it.
Well, that's since World War II, right?
That's going to go.
I think that, well, I said maybe World War II that happened. Maybe. I don't know.
Got it. No. I get you. I just mean current lifetime.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Everything I speak of is current lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is so much different now.
It
is.
Beliefs,
the information we even have access to on a daily basis.
Right.
Things are so much different now. It's just, you know, I really don't, I don't think of it in the terms, even though I really have a lot of respect for history, immense amounts of respect for history. I don't think anything from history hardly can help us in what we're dealing with right now because of the information age and, you know, so quickly you can destroy your opponent as they made one bad decision that doesn't affect the outcome type of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They didn't have social media back then. So true.
Right. They could make 5 bad decisions and get the important one right, and nobody knew they made 5 bad decisions.
So you don't see a national lockdown happening.
Word, and they're destroying it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd. Everything is absurd to the point now that I would really, if I may, I would like to emphasize to anyone listening, be a little more self-reliant. The government cannot always help you. How much
food should people get? Let me just stop you and ask you, how much food should people get to prepare? Because it just crossed my mind. I read a scary article that warehouses are being taxed because people aren't going to restaurants as much. More people are going to the grocery stores. Everybody just assumes it's hoarding and everything's going to get back on the shelf. And some people are raising the alarms and saying, no, you know, this is taxing the entire system. It's going to be like this. How much food should people be getting? Because, you know, they say don't hoard. And so I'm trying to just get a few extra things every time I go to the grocery store. But at a certain point, you run out of freezer space, and then you feel like a jerk. I kind of feel like a jerk because I feel like I am hoarding, even though it's just a few extra items each time. Now I have a whole fridge of stuff, and it goes through my mind, hey, you know, am I a part of the problem, or am I taking precautions? Am I being smart? What do you think?
Well, today I bought 5 pounds of dinosaur shaped chicken nuggets to make sure my girls can have chicken nuggets for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I didn't buy 10 pounds. I didn't buy 15 pounds. I still have faith in the overall way the system is going to operate. But I wouldn't underbuy for sure. I mean, you know, you don't want to buy for 2-3 days. If you have the ability, you should buy for a week or more, preferably 2 weeks of food. You know, you should have 2 weeks of food on hand no matter what. I mean, that's the absolute minimum. Myself also, if you don't mind me changing topic a little, I don't have any money in the banks anymore. No money in the banks. I have $100 in my business checking, and I have $100 in my private checking. And the rest I have on cash. It's on me, and it cannot be taken out of my bank account by anyone for any purpose I have a little bit of a problem with what's going on in the banking system right now. At least a little bit. I think I undersold that a bit. I have a problem with what's going on in the banking industry right now. And I've pulled out of stuff, and I'm going back to self-reliant mode, for as much as I can. And I think that's what people ought to do. People should not rely on the government. Certainly federal. I mean, federal, their powers are far beyond what their reach should be. We'll see how that gets fixed in the future, certainly with, us not having a house. Beyond that, we have to work on this reliance problem. Everyone is, tuning into and I'm doing it. I'm part of the same group. We're tuning into YouTube every day around 2 p.m. and we're looking for that Donald Trump press conference where he argues with reporters and we get a little information from the CDC, and that's how we run our lives for the next day or week or however it goes. Know what is going on, but don't be so reliant. That's ridiculous. You're setting your family up for failure. Please don't do that. That's bad.
Especially when they're saying stuff that's kind of counterintuitive, like, don't wear a mask. A mask will actually get you more chances of getting sick than less. And, it's counterintuitive. We're all sitting there thinking, really? A mask's going to get us more sick? Now, everyone has a personal preference on what they want to do to prepare, but it seems to me that it's just basic common sense. If you're wearing a mask, you're probably less likely to spread the disease and probably less likely to get the disease. And now the CDC's come out and said that. So if we're all, just looking and listening blindly, then we check our common sense out the window. And is that kind of what you're pointing at?
Yeah, I mean, certainly to an extent. I do have, a problem with the fact that the administration came out and said, don't buy masks, don't buy N95 masks, don't buy N100 masks, don't buy surgical masks. They don't do anything. We now know that they were saying that so that people would stop hoarding them, stockpiling them, bidding on them, making all these financial plays for them, when really it was just undercutting our the hospitals and everybody else in the mix that absolutely needed them. And so I understand the need. I just don't like the way that it went about. Is right. How I would say that.
And if we weren't so reliant, then we wouldn't have fallen for that. People that were so reliant on everything the government says, maybe they can fall into that trap where me and you are using our common sense. And I wish I actually had taken my own common sense and gotten a mask earlier. I didn't. But, I think the common sense is so key. I love what you're saying about not being reliant on the government.
Well, I appreciate that. And the thing of it is that with regard to common sense is that it's not so common anymore. And anybody with common sense will laugh as I say that. The thing of it is that even I messed up on the mask front. I have one N95 mask that I use for work, just so I don't have to breathe wood chips and, insulation in attics and whatever I might have to breathe. I have one mask, and that's mine exclusively because I've worn it. My family doesn't have masks. My girl's grandmother is looking to sew some masks. But then you have the issue there is how seriously do I take this, whatever, because she doesn't have the ability to quarantine the way I've quarantined with my family. She's still going to work every day. And, she works at a clinic where pregnant women are seen. And so she's still meeting with people every single day. So a new conundrum is introduced. Do I take this mask that grandma sewed, with the pretty stuff on the front for my girls? Or, do I make this big scene and, bathe it in hand sanitizer before I let it in my car type thing? As I mentioned, we have taken this quarantine fairly seriously, make that very seriously, It's one person in the store at a time. If the girls came with us because we went there as a family, then there's, it's one person in the store at a time, and lots of measures to make sure that there's, no contraction of the virus into the car that then goes to our home, this and that. We haven't acted paranoid in the way we disinfect. It hasn't been an all-out crazy measure of just, going through these supplies like the antibacterial wipes and things. But, we've done a reasonable job of following not only what family has asked us to follow with regard to the quarantine, but also what, the government has asked us to follow. We've done a really good job of that. But you come down to that question of grandma's making masks. So, do we bathe it in?
Yeah, I know.
Do we bathe it in hand sanitizer or just let the girls look at it real quick, and then we put it in a bag and wash it at home? And
right.
And
because your grandma's has been exposed potentially to the virus, and so that's the concern. And maybe and there's so much confusion, so many unknowns. Can it live on surfaces for how long? And they all say yes. They say yes. That they seem to say yes to everything. It lives in the air, it lives on surfaces. I think as time goes on, we'll learn more about really how it spreads, and now they're kind of being overcautious about it. But it's good to take those precautions. I commend you for that. And when you have kids, especially like you're mentioning, it just all becomes that much more serious. Thank you for sharing how you're dealing with this crisis, for your thoughts on the leadership of our great president. Appreciate you being on the podcast today. And everybody, if you're listening, you can follow The Culture Fixer on Twitter. His handle is @AmericasFixer, and I encourage you to do so. Thanks for your time today on the podcast.
Kingston Country. You've been listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast.